This is Prep Sports Now, a Las Vegas Sun sports podcast. I'm Ray Brewer with a special guest today from Faith Lutheran High, Nolan Kohorst. Many of him know him as the great Green Valley kicker who played for UNLV, was part of their Heart of Dallas bowl team. Nolan, welcome to our little show.
Thanks for having me, Ray.
Yeah, and I know you said that Coach Talich last week kind of set the bar high, and we're glad to have such knowledgeable guests, and we're also glad for our sponsor, the A's and Las Vegas Aviators. Thank you for sponsoring Prep Sports Now all season. Again, we are looking for guest hosts. We've had a few people step up, including Nolan, who on the side helps train a lot of the Valley's kickers, regardless of which school they go for. And he claims that he's broken down some kicker film, wants to talk about the importance of special teams. And why not? I love kickers. I wanted to kick in the NFL, but I suck, so it didn't happen. But Nolan, who's the best kicker in town?
Well, like you said, I work with Chris Saylor Kicking, which is kind of a national brand. And then we'll do our lessons here in town. I'll work with different guys like Bovin and Terry. Arborview is a big one that'll help out a lot. But I mean, if I'm going to pick one guy that is the best guy that is my prediction for kind of kicker of the year right now, it's going to be Nick Rasai out of Centennial. Multiple 50-plus yard field goals. I'd have to look at the stats exactly, but he's got to be up there at least in the 80% range for touchbacks. His punt average is in the high 30s, if not 40s. He's your absolute combo player. Happened to have come out of Faith Lutheran as well, and then transferred to Centennial. But I mean, kid's got a leg. Great coaching over there at Centennial, getting him right. But he's your weapon. He's the absolute weapon around town.
So I'm glad you bring this up, because I don't know. Obviously, we have a lot of coaches and players who listen to the show, and they know the importance of having a kicker who could kick off and get it into the end zone, because field position is so crucial. It drives me crazy to see the amount of kickoff returns for a touchdown every week. And that, as a special team, because you're the Faith special teams coach, that's just the fact that you're getting the ball to the other team's best player and giving them a ton of open space, right?
Correct. I think one of the big things, one of the struggles for high school kicking in general is, can we hit a touchback? If you can't, then it's kind of, how do we get it away from those guys? I remember playing when we're playing Gorman, and they had Zach Branch was back there, and the whole week was just going, how do I get this ball away from this kid? How do I, on punt, we're just gonna kick the ball out of bounds. We're not gonna mess with this kid. Let's just hit it out of bounds. If you don't have a guy that's hitting touchbacks, it makes it more complicated, even to the point where, do you just kick the ball out of bounds? Do you just say, let him play from the 35 instead of giving them the possibility for a touchdown? Especially if you've got a guy like Zach, if you got a guy like, to date myself, if you got the Torrin Harrises of the world from Palo, if you've got, that was one of the things I remember talking to Coach Cutts over at Durango about last year was, hey, can you stop hitting touchbacks with Chittenden, who's at UNLV now, so that our guys can actually have a chance at a return? Cutts is probably one of those guys that I pick his brain, and he'll pick my brain the most on special teams, just because we understand the significance of it. And he's got 3 or 4 block punts, 2 or 3 returns for touchdowns this year. And I think that's a huge advantage for Durango going in this year.
Correct. And they've won 5 or 6 in a row, and it seems like they're scoring a touchdown every week on special teams or defense. So obviously glad you bring that up. Let me ask you a strategy question. If you're a head coach, they kick the ball out of bounds, you get it at the 35, or do you have the option to have them re-kick it from 5 yards deeper or whatever yards deeper?
To me as a special teams coach, if I'm looking at who is the kicker and how are they covering. If you've got a team that they're kicking the ball out of bounds on purpose because, hey, we just want to give you the ball at the 35. We don't want to mess with it. Our coverage team isn't doing anything. We just want to give you the ball. I'm making them re-kick again. If it's one where, hey, this kid smashed the ball and the ball took a weird bounce at the 2-yard line out of bounds, I'm going to take it at the 35. But I think some of that is what's the philosophy behind it? Why is the ball out of bounds? We've had a couple lucky bounces on ours where one of our kickers hit a 75-yard touchback the other day, and it hit on like the 15 and rolled in for a touchback. So that's one of those where if that ball would have kicked out of bounds, you might make them re-kick again just 5 yards further back.
Okay. So what about this? At Faith, you guys, of course, Mike Sanford, the former UNLV coach, is the head coach. And you guys probably attempt more field goals than any other team in the state. The fact that the coaching staff has confidence in the kicker, does that help at all?
Oh, absolutely. I think having Cade in the last couple of years, who they just came out today and said he got freshman All Mountain West for this last week against Fresno. He's doing a great job over there. Having him was a huge weapon, and one of those where if we're inside, balls on the 35, we're in field goal range. So he had a 57 against Basic last year. We led the country in the last 2 years in field goal attempts and field goals made. So this isn't like we're driving down and we're going to kick it from the 3-yard line just to give us a little chip shot. Some of these were some deep ones. But it's also nice to know that, hey, once we cross the 35, it's not about red zone. Like, we're getting 3 points on every drive that we need to. So there's some teams that will struggle with that, having that weapon. And I think knowing the rule that in high school especially, if you kick the ball and you miss the field goal, but it goes in the end zone, it goes to the 20. So I think more teams should start attempting those long kicks, especially if you got a guy that can hit if he can hit from 40, the ball's being kicked from the 30, you're giving up 3 yards. That's a punt essentially to give them 3 yards. You're knocking down your punt inside the 5 most of the time just because of height and whatever other variables you want to throw out there. But try that kick. That's why Nick Garitano's got the record for longest field goal at UNLV, because he's at that time in college, you could take it as a touchback. Mm-hmm. So I think when coaches understand that it's played the same thing as a punt, and I think that video going out, I think it was last week on Max Preps, of the team attempting like a 90-something yard field goal, but they played it as a punt. I think teams look at it and went, oh, there's a lot of special teams rules that aren't being exploited, kind of for the advantage of the teams that know it.
Yeah. So this week's games are played on Saturday because of the Jewish holiday. And if you look at the schedule, for me, the game of the week is in the Class 5A Division II, the league that Faith is in. Shadow Ridge at Legacy. Shadow Ridge kind of has its misdirection rushing attack. They've got a stud at tailback who doesn't get talked about enough. And Faith has got Crawford to Oliver. And I've always been best player on the field. That's likely Oliver, who's got the offer from Iowa State. But
Legacy's got that, not Faith.
Yeah. Legacy, yeah. Legacy's guy has got the offer. He's probably the best player on the field. But this Tyrell Craven kid has had something like 11 touchdowns and 900 yards over the last 2 weeks for Shadow. He played at Legacy last year, and this just has the making for a classic Saturday afternoon game. You guys have kind of you're familiar with both of these teams. Is it going to be as close as I think it should be?
I think you are absolutely correct, and this is the game of the week. I think this is the one everyone needs to keep their eye on. We played Shadow a couple weeks ago. It's that misdirection football. We luckily had our bye right before we played Shadow, so we got to spend a little bit extra time on that misdirection, on that triple option, on kind of what their quarterback does, what their running backs are doing. And then, I mean, they played us tough all game. I like when we win games by a little bit bigger, but they held us tough all game. And then we got Legacy coming up next. And they, like you just said, they've got some dudes that can fly around the field. If you're not keeping track of where everybody is and what they're doing, they're going to expose you. So, I absolutely agree. This is the game of the week. I think who's going to win it? Are they going to pound it in the middle and shut that run game down, or is Shadow going to be able to shut down the speed of some of those guys that you're going to be watching play on Saturday regularly instead of on Friday?
Okay, so Arborview, Coronado last week, game of the week. This is kind of like our 5 things dysfunctionalized because I forgot to advertise it. But Arborview, great game, back and forth with Coronado. Great quarterbacks on both sides. Aiden Cross for Coronado to J.J. Buchanan. Great 1-2 combo. And then, of course, Thatcher over at Arborview. Back and forth, decided at the end. Arborview prevails. They're now kind of the leader in the clubhouse behind Gorman to get to be the 2 seed to get to Allegiant Stadium. And you look at the Arborview offense with a great tight end, which I said last week, Zach Ferris. You've got great players on the outside. Could Arborview's skilled players offensively hang in a fight with Gorman?
I mean, that you're asking. I mean, that's the question. Who can go toe to toe with them? Who can hang on? I think I would even say that I think Gorman's offensive weapons are down from what they have been. I think you've talked about in the last couple of weeks. You got a new quarterback. It's not your marquee name that you've had in the last couple of years. It's not a Martell. It's not a
Alejado. Yeah.
It's not one of your guys that name just jumps off the page. But I think the defense is where Gorman holds up. I think there's those safeties flying around back there. I think that's going to provide a huge matchup for Thaddeus throwing the ball around. And then, I mean, Arborview's linebackers, let's see if they can give an FCC lineman some issues with him running around. I still think Gorman holds tough. I think that when the time comes, you're going to get some Bo Vinatieri razzle dazzle on special teams. So I think that needs to be mentioned because that's his pride and joy of throwing in those little punches there. But I think that's going to be a huge matchup. I think Arborview is still a step down, but I think you are correct in saying that Arborview is the new number 2.
Yeah, I think and it's an odd spot for them to be in. So I think a lot of teams. Well, first of all, the thing that I loved about Liberty over the years is that they threw the kitchen sink at Gorman, and they thought they could compete with Gorman, and they didn't change their game plan. They were going to run what they run, no matter who was on the other side. So that would be my advice to Arbor is don't try to do like you saw when Shadow played Gorman last year, right? They killed the clock and they got into the half at 7-3, but that wasn't sustainable because eventually you were going to have to score because eventually Gorman's going to get the ball, they're going to score real fast, and then you're going to have to answer them, and it's impossible. So I just love how Gorman kind of takes you out of what you do. And that's why I bring it up with Arbor because, Gorman's been known for some of its skilled players. And I think Arbor's got 4 or 5 kids that are really, really special, top in D1. Now, they don't have the line that Gorman does. But I think this is an interesting game where, my eyes are open and I want to see it.
Oh, I completely agree. I think part of it is, even looking back to last week with Coronado and Arborview, I think the score is a little misleading in that I think Coronado kind of gave them a little shock. I think we all expected it to be a good matchup. We all expected both quarterbacks to do real well. And I think it came down to a costly turnover on I believe Coronado's punt return, dropping the ball. And then then Arborview gets to get a quick pick after that to turn the whole game around. So I think with Arborview forcing those little mistakes to really shift momentum and shift the game was a huge deal for them winning that game. At the same time, I think Thaddeus also recognizes that, hey, I got to get the ball up quick. Whether it's Coronado, whether it's Gorman, whether it's DP, whoever we're playing, we got to get that ball out quick to the guys that can go make those plays. And as he builds that up, as he gets more confidence in that, I think the offensive line understands that, hey, when he gets it out quick, we just got to hold our blocks for 1-2 seconds. We don't have to hold a 4-second block. This isn't the NFL. But if we give him just a little bit of time, let those guys get just a little bit more space, it becomes a completely different ballgame.
Yeah. So of all the leagues, and the league you guys are in, the Shadow, Legacy, Faith trifecta is going to make for a fun time in the playoff. But I tell you, the other game that is super, super interesting to me is another league down. Mojave's just been going through everybody with ease, and Somerset's been going through everybody with ease. And they're scheduled to play on the last game of the regular season, and I would bet again in the playoffs. First of all, realignment is working semi for this, but secondly, do you have any inclination of who's better between Somerset, who's not been healthy all year, and Mojave, who has got some really big players?
First of all, I want to talk about Mojave with Antoine Hawkins, their kicker. He's also playing receiver for them. He's running all over the field for them, making all their extra points. He's going to be crucial for them. I think Losi under Barneson, if I'm correct.
Correct.
So I think with Barneson, he's got him dialed into his system. I think, as you would say, I think Mojave's got the Jimmies and Joes. I think Losi's got the X's and O's a little bit more. So I think that's going to be your battle there. I think does Losi handle what Mojave throws at him, or is Mojave going to kind of break down when it comes to being a sound either offensively or defensively?
Correct. And I think Barneson has the X's and O's edge every week of the year.
Oh, absolutely. Him all the way back to Arborview.
Correct.
When we got that again, we're playing in the trenches now, and you got to play his game for at least half of it. This is not let's spread them out. This is you got to go in there and play with them when they got the ball instead of trying to get them to get out of their game. He's not going to move. He's got his thing that he does, and you got to make sure you play with them.
Absolutely. So last level, and if you get a kicker on the 3A, I'm going to be worried about you. But you saw Moapa kind of bounce back a little bit with a 50-point win at home against Boulder City. I still think I would love to see that Slam Moapa game, and I've said Moapa wrong for 25 years, just to let you know. But I'd want to see that game played 10 times because it was that good back and forth. And I just don't know where Virgin factors into it because they've been unhealthy all year. But I think it's going to be a wild ending in that league. The playoffs are going to be sick here locally because somebody's going to have to beat Virgin in the semis to then go to Truckee up north, which nobody wants to do.
Yeah, I think 3A is one of those. To quote Kofor, I wouldn't put it as far as this, but saying it's the SEC is a little stretch. But I would even say you go Big Ten, and that way you got the yes, it's week in, week out for about half the season, but then you got to go play in the cold for your championship game. So you got Virgin, you got Moapa. Matter East isn't a slouch either. And then you got Boulder City stumbling a little bit right now. Slam's your powerhouse. I know that they've gotten beaten up by some of the bigger boys. Garrett Plot's their kicker over there. Moapa's got Devin Campbell. I don't think it's going to come down to a field goal between those two. But I do think kind of stopping that run game, trying to see who's kind of lay the wood in the trenches, is going to be kind of the difference between Moapa and Slam.
It's kind of so Slam. Does Slam have a kicker? Yes, right. Moapa.
Garrett Plots, yeah.
Okay, because when I was at the game, I don't believe Moapa had a kicker. Or they went for two every time.
They've got Devin Campbell. If I remember correctly, just from my research, I think we've had it's been spotty on whether or not on how much coach trusts him going for field goals and stuff. But they do have a guy.
Yeah, obviously Mike knows a little bit at Slam about kicking. He was a 49er Super Bowl winner kicker. So
two-time Super Bowl winner.
Yeah, so that takes
and then his son Spencer ended up playing football at Green Valley as a kicker. Played, I think if I remember it right, played for a year in college, playing baseball and football. So the Kofor name lives on kicking.
Yeah, the lineage is there. All right, we're going to get into the picks. Are you prepared for this level of it?
I think so. I think I'm good with all the way through it.
All right. Well, I'll just read off the game. You go first, and then I'll go second. First game, of course, we go with the Big Shadow Legacy game.
Like I said, this is your real game of the week. This is your 5A2 class. I do think if with the injury to Shadow's quarterback a couple weeks ago, them trying to figure out kind of their Band-Aid for that situation, I do think the speed is going to overpower a little bit for Legacy. So I have Legacy in this pick.
Okay, so I go with my best player on the field, Dominic Oliver pick, and you're right. I just don't think Shadow's got the speed on defense to slow this kid down. I've got Legacy, but it's going to be a good one. Next game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, next game, Foothill at Gorman.
First of all, I have to give love to Jason Arredondo. If you don't know, Gray, he's the long snapper at Gorman, and he's a Tulane commit. So you can forget about all your linemen, forget about all your safeties over there and guys going to LSU. You got a real guy going to Tulane as a long snapper. But I think Gorman still pulls this one out. I think Foothill last year would have given him a little bit more of a run. But I do think Gorman takes this one.
Okay, so like I said, I love Foothill. They're undefeated. The Brendan Arthur kid could sling the ball around. But, of course, this is Gorman, and it's going to be name your score Saturday afternoon. Next game, DP at Arborview. If you remember last year, they went to overtime, fight at the end. Everybody had to forfeit. Arbor needs to be on its best behavior, and I have them rolling, of course.
Yeah, I think DP is a different DP than years past. I think they've still got some guys. I still think they got some like their quarterback's playing well. I think having the showing they did against Basic this last week was a big step forward for them, so that it's not just staying stagnant. But I do think that Arbor handles business. I think Arbor remembers last year. I think they're going to be very buttoned up this week for what they got going on. But I do think they're going to handle business.
Yes, very true. Okay, next game, Green Valley at Sierra Vista. You go first.
So I think Green Valley, even when you mentioned that you have the Shadows, you have the Arborviews, you have Faith. I think Green Valley's right in that mix. I don't think Green Valley's a step down from any of those four or those three, I guess. I think Green Valley's right in that mix. They got the new head coach who was still there under Clay. I mean, he's got more experience than maybe anybody but Coach Sanford in town. He's got, they've got some dudes over there too. Dax Arnold hitting field goals all over the place. I think Green Valley is going to come out with this one. I think Sierra Vista's got some injuries they got to work on. I think they gotta figure out a couple of their some of the things that we saw from this last Friday. But I think Green Valley takes this one.
I've got Green Valley winning as well. They are. You're right. I guess I might have overlooked them, but Gators all the way. Coronado league game at Basic. Heat of the day, right in the afternoon. Who do you got?
I coached at Basic. They gave me my first coaching job out of college. I want to go with Cahill and Frankie Ortiz out of Basic. I just don't know if they're going to overcome that quarterback. I think Nate Gifford's got that offensive line working over at Coronado. I think they've got a lot of stuff going on. I just don't think Basic can keep up with it.
I totally agree. I have Coronado kind of pulling away in this one as well, kind of lopsided. All right, the next one is.
I think Case is going to start to get jealous of this. We're starting to agree all the time.
I know. He's yeah. I just don't know. Like, some of these are so cut and dry. There could be no argument. I will tell you this. This game coming up is sneaky good. On the surface, Centennial at Clark doesn't sound like it's a good game, but Clark's a lot better than people think, and Centennial has just had an awful time defensively all year.
Again, I start at the top of this. I think Nick Rasai is your not-so-secret weapon for Centennial. He's putting the ball in the end zone every time. He's average. I mean, one of the weeks he was averaging like a 42-yard punt to get him out of a bad spot. He's had multiple 50-yarders this year. I think he's going to be kind of your weapon that they've got there. Haas Ryan for the Chargers, I think, is going to be very valuable down the stretch for them as well. I think Centennial's kind of coming into their own. I think they're starting to figure it out. I got the Bulldogs.
Okay, I have the Bulldogs as well, but this was my anyone have a coin game of the week. I think it's going to be closer than people think.
Gotcha.
Next game on the board is Cheyenne at Losi.
See, now I'm stuck in the past where I remember the Marcus Sullivan Cheyenne games, or even the Chris Spencer games for Cheyenne. I got Cheyenne for this. I think they're going to be running around. I think they got some speed. I think Losi is very well coached. I think they've got that honed in, but I think Cheyenne's going to give them a run. I think this might be one of those where they're looking ahead past some other teams. I think Cheyenne's going to be one of those overlooked teams that might sneak in there.
Okay, so I disagree with you. I'm glad we got there. I will tell you Cheyenne might be the most improved team in the state. Considering where they started the last few years to where they're at now. But I just think Losi's a well-oiled machine, and you just gave them some bulletin board material. I have Losi winning by double digits, so we finally have disagreed.
All right.
Yes.
Double digits. All
yes. Right. All right, next game is a no-brainer for me, Mojave against Bonanza.
Mojave.
Yes, I agree. Next game, Canyon that put up 50 last week against Centennial against Del Sol.
I think Canyon is not the Canyon from the past. I think the Canyon of the Devontae Christophers and the Jerron Kreiners, I think they're getting back there. I feel like they're getting better every week. Del Sol just lost a heartbreaker this last Friday. They lost by they missed an extra point, and then they missed the 2-point conversion for the tie, while Spring Valley made their extra point for the win. I don't know if Del Sol's going to bounce back on that. I got Canyon.
I've got Canyon as well. Maybe they've got some mojo flying in the direction after the best performance of the season last week against Centennial. Here's a game that I think is interesting. Virgin Valley at Boulder City. Decent little drive from Mesquite to Boulder. And Boulder, in my opinion, is kind of like going to Pahrump. It's not easy on teams. I've got Virgin, but I think it's going to be close.
I agree. I think Boulder's had kind of a rough, Boulder's had a rough go of it lately. I think Cash Daly might be a factor in this game for them, getting them a couple extra points kind of in the hidden areas. But I do think Virgin's going to kind of make their way on a road trip for the win.
All righty. Saturday win. And you know the kicker at every school, Durango at Sunrise Mountain. Who do you got?
I think, like I said earlier, I think Cuts has got them rolling. I think they're in a good spot. I'm happy to see that. I think Durango keeps it moving. Sunrise is still looking for a win.
All righty. Next game we agree on, Cimarron over Rancho, correct?
Yes.
Okay. God bless Rancho. Next, we should agree on this because you would never, ever come on the podcast and pick against Chaparral. My Cowboys hosting Valley, fresh off winning the cleat game at the buzzer in a back-and-forth affair.
I do think the Cowboys have this one. I want the Vikings to get back to their prominence so bad. I think there's just so much influx over there. I want a guy to get in there and stay a couple of years to keep that team really going. But I think I got the Cowboys this week.
Absolutely. Okay, next game. Spring Valley that escaped against Del Sol, against El Dorado, who might be slightly better than 0-5.
I got Tristan Diamond leading the Grizzlies.
All right, I've got Spring Valley in a close one too. I do think El Dorado has a little bit of a cleat game hangover from losing the Shab.
I agree. I think especially as important as that game is between those two, I think Spring Valley, I don't want to say runs away, but I think they're going to have a little more confidence going in, kind of cruise to an easy one.
Okay. Vegas at Cactus Shadows, Arizona.
As much as you're going to throw your theories at me with going down to an Arizona school, I got to go with Vegas. I think Mauricio Rodriguez has done a great job for them. New coach over there, but brought back that Wildcat spirit. My wife's family is all from Vegas. My brother-in-law is coaching over there now for wrestling. So it's good to see them back over there. Good to see the red and black back in prominence.
Yeah, Jose's done a great job at Vegas High. You look at all the games that they've won where we've picked on the wrong side. We had Palo in week 1. They had the big win over Desert Pines. They shut down what I think is a decent Desert Oasis team last week. I just don't like any team that has to travel out of town, and I have them losing. So we're different on 2.
Pride of the East Side is going to fall, you think?
Correct. Pride of the East Side. Next game, Palo at Silverado. And God bless Barillia. He's doing a great job over at Silverado. I think they only got like 23 kids total on the varsity team. So I've got.
They were super small in their numbers when we played them. Like you said, I think Barilla's doing a great job over there, getting the guys out. They've got some dudes that can absolutely fly. I mean, when we played them a couple of weeks ago, we absolutely had to key on their guys. Had to make sure that we locked them down. But I do think Palo and Noah Serna is going to kind of run away with this one.
Yeah, I like Palo as well. Again, it's just I don't think people realize how hard it is to build a football team here in Las Vegas. We just have so many high schools, and it's so spread out, and it's not like when we were kids and you kind of grew up in a neighborhood and went to that school.
And I think even for Silverado being in an interesting situation, you have so many good years, or you have two great years where you win state back to back. Coach O doing a great job over there, and then you have all those kids graduate, and now you're stuck playing the big boys. You're stuck playing the Gormans and the Liberties and the Arborviews week in and week out. Now you got to come back down, and you're still trying to rebuild, and you're at the bottom of that next league. It's almost similar to what we saw with Centennial a couple of years. You go play in the state finals, and then you wind up in 4A. So I think it's going to be a hill to climb, but I think they got the guy to lead them on that journey.
Yeah, and that's the thing with realignment is it takes, the last 2 years, and there's this mathematical formula, but what it doesn't take into consideration is that most of the players that helped you do whatever you did or the last 2 years aren't there anymore, and most times you're hitting the reset button. And you're forced to do that by playing Gorman and playing Liberty. You look at Basic this year as a prime example.
Yeah, I think the format they have, I don't mind realignment. I think it's a way to get better competition and to get a little bit closer. I don't like the fact that it breaks up some of those neighborhood rivalries where it's not the Green Valley Coronado anymore. It's not the Green Valley Basic anymore. You're playing teams from all across town, which I guess on some account, like you're getting to play other teams, you're getting to see the whole city. But at the same time, you want to go play against your buddies. You want those kids you went to middle school with, those kids that you grew up with, having those quick little sibling rivalries. You want to go play those guys. That's what we grew up doing. I think there's a miss to that, but I still think that I don't know if it's 2 years. I don't think it should be year to year. I think year to year it makes it too tough on those teams that have that one great senior class that rolls through, and then you got to go fight for the next couple of years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We got one more game. Mater East at Moawapa Valley.
Now, I think Mater East, because I talked to Sean Dixon over there, I think Mater East is one. I think they're one of the best looking teams on the field this year. You were at the press conference. You saw their uniforms.
They look good. Yes, absolutely.
I have it under good authority that Mater East, those uniforms that they're wearing this year are the same uniforms that Oregon wears.
Okay. Well,
so if you want to go and look good, play good, you got Mater East. Do I think that it's the same as your theory going to Moawapa or going to Pahrump? Are they going to look as good after they got to go play on the grass at Moawapa? I think it's going to be a challenge out there. So I got Moawapa.
Okay. I've got Moawapa as well. So we're plugging away here. Happily doing another edition of Prep Sports Now. Nolan, thank you to you for being part of the show. Thank you to the A's and Las Vegas Aviators for their consistent support. And if you'd like to sit in Nolan's chair or Coach Talich's chair, hit me up on Twitter at RayBrewer21. My DMs are open. And we hope everybody has a safe Saturday of prep football.